What is up, YouTube? It is SpecialK75 here today. Today we're playing My Wife Suck at Futanari's Toes. This game gets more based than ever. Alright, let's get into it. Alright, as usual, SpecialK75 as the username. Alright, let's go. Sheesh, it's back in the neighborhood in Japan. I came home from work today, feeling the usual dullness like a gray cloud hanging over my head. The day had been long as always, and I was just hoping for some kind of comfort, even though I knew better than to expect it. As I pulled into the driveway, a strange car was parked in front of our house. A sleek black sedan that I didn't recognize. My stomach twisted a little, and I tried to brush off the unease creeping up on me. I opened the front door and immediately saw something was different. The house smelled incredible, like a feast was being prepared. The scent of garlic and herbs filled the air, making my mouth water. It was such a stark contrast to the usual blandness that I almost wondered if I walked into the wrong house. Then I heard laughter coming from the living room. It was her laugh, but it was lighter, more carefree than I heard in years. My heart sank as I walked down the hallway, the smell growing stronger, the laughter louder. When I turned the corner, I saw my wife sitting on the couch. Oh boy. She looked radiant, more alive than I had seen her in a long time. Her smile was wide, genuine, her eyes sparkling. But she wasn't alone. Sitting across from her was a woman tall and striking, with a physique that I could have been sculptured from marble. Yeah, this is like the other one I played. It's like, he's one of them trainers that got knocked down by like Amelia. Like, that was in the other game. If you guys already saw that on the channel, you already know. But damn, her hair was perfectly styled and her presence excluded confidence. They were talking like old friends, laughing and joking as if they had known each other forever. My wife looked at her with a kind of admiration, a spark that I hadn't seen in her eyes in a long time. I stood there like, feeling like an intruder in my own home. They hadn't noticed me yet. I took a step back, the sound of my foot on the hardwood floor finally catching their attention. My wife looked up, her smile faltering just slightly when she saw me. "Oh, you're home." Her voice was a little too casual, as if she was trying to hide something. "This is Vanessa, she's an old friend." Vanessa stood up, extending her hand towards me with a warm smile. "Nice to meet you." Her voice was smooth and confident. I shook her hand, feeling the strength in her grip. "Nice to meet you too." I tried to force a smile, but it felt hollow. "Vanessa's just visiting." My wife's tone was dismissive, as if she was trying to downplay the situation. But the way she looked at Vanessa, the way she had been laughing, smiling, told me that there was more to this visit than just an old friend dropping by. I couldn't help but notice the table in the dining room set with plates, silverware, and glasses. There were dishes laid out, steaming and inviting, the kind of meal I had never seen her make for me. It hurt seeing that she had put in so much effort for this guest. Well, I couldn't even get her to cook me anything beyond a microwave cheese griller and a dry bun. "I hope you don't mind, but I've been craving some real food and Vanessa offered to help me out." My wife didn't even look at me when she spoke, her attention already drifting back to Vanessa. I swallowed the lump in my throat and nodded. "Of course, that's fine." While they returned their conversation, I stood there feeling invisible, a ghost in my own home. I made an excuse about having work to do and retreated to the bedroom. The delicious smell of the meal they were about to share following me as I left the room. I sat on the edge of the bed staring at the floor, my thoughts racing. This was the first time I hadn't felt like this, but it was the first time it had hurt this much. The spark in our marriage had long since faded, if it had ever really been there at all. I had tried to please her, but I had always fallen short. I knew I was too much of a pushover, never able to take charge the way she wanted. And then there were the little things like how she didn't like my feet. And after that, it goes on from there. About all the feetness, man. and she found them unattractive. Short broad with crooked, stubby toes. Like, some foot fetish. What the hell? She had mentioned it once in passing, but it had stuck with me. Another thing about myself that I couldn't change. But this was different. The way she looked at Vanessa, the way she had put in all this effort, it was something I had never seen from her before, and it hurt more than I wanted to admit. I felt like I was losing her if I hadn't already. I didn't know what to do, how to fix this, how to be the man she wanted me to be. All I could do was sit there, the smell of the meal and the sound of their laughter drifting through the house, reminding me of what I was missing, of how far I had fallen short. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't know if I could ever make things right. We gotta do something. We gotta do something. It's just... Little did I know that Vanessa was just what our relationship needed, though not in the way I would have imagined. She brought a new energy to our home, a spark that had been missing for so long. But with that spark came a harsh light, one that cast me in a stark contrast to her. Vanessa was everything I wasn't. Confident, strong, decisive. My wife admired her, looking up to her in ways I had never been able to inspire. The loneliness was too much to bear, and holding out for hope, I made my way back to the living room. Oh man, I'm just struggling right here trying to go through all this. This is absolutely crazy. I started to notice things. My wife's laughter, which had once been rare, now filled the house. The way she listened intently to Vanessa, hanging on her every word. While I struggled to keep her attention for an even moment, I began to feel more like a background character in my own life. Someone who was there to be compared and found wanting. It was clear that Vanessa was here to stay. At first, it hurt. I didn't measure up, and my wife didn't hesitate to point that out in her own way. Vanessa didn't say anything directly, but the way she looked at me, the small smiles she exchanged with my wife, said more than words ever could. Being the pushover I am, I came to accept it. This was the best I was going to get. Leftovers, the scraps of attention and affection that my wife had left after basking in Vanessa's glow. I made peace with it in a way. I knew I wasn't the man she wanted, and if this was the role I had to play to keep her in my life, then so be it. It was better than being alone. I wasn't strong enough, confident enough, or anything enough to be the man my wife needed. Vanessa was now going to fill that void. Now if my part in all of this was to be the one who was belittled and judged, then I would play that role. Because at least I was still there. At least I still had something, even if it was just the leftovers. Man, I fight over for that food, bro. I'm not gonna hold you. I'm fighting for that food. You ain't gonna push me over to the side. I'm fighting for that stuff, like Queso. Queso would not let that slide. But anyways, the sun had dipped below the horizon, casting the room in a warm orange glow as the smell of dinner, rich, hearty, and inviting, filled the air. I found myself trailing behind them as they made their way to the dining table. The wine in their glasses swirled with each step. My wife, never known for her clumsiness, suddenly became unsteady, laughing as she almost stumbled. Vanessa was right there, hand finding the small of my wife's back, steadying her with ease. The two of them shared a look, something intimidating, and knowing that I felt like an intruder and outsider looking in. Man, this is absolutely crazy. As we reached the table, I instinctively moved towards the spot where I had always sat. But before I could even pull out the chair, Vanessa casually slipped into it, her movement so smooth, so natural, that it was as if she had always belonged there. Dude, that's why you don't belong there. Stay on the other side. I hesitated for a moment, but it passed without incident, exactly as she knew it would. There was no need for words. She had taken the seat with the confidence of someone who knew I wouldn't object. And she was right. I didn't. The dinner unfolded like a scene from a play in which I had no speaking role. My wife and Vanessa were completely engrossed in each other, their conversation flowing effortlessly, their laughter filling the space between bites. It was as if I wasn't even there, a ghost at the table. Like, I'm just a whole boo from Nintendo, like, just sitting there. I ate quietly, the food delicious but tasteless in my mouth as I watched the two of them interact. Vanessa was playful, feeding my wife small bites from her fork, their eyes locking as they shared the moment. My wife blushed, something I hadn't seen in years, and Vanessa smiled, leaning in to wipe a speck of food from her cheek with a napkin. And before the napkin touched her skin, Vanessa brought it to her lips, blotting it against her tongue in slow, deliberate motion that made my wife's blush deepen. I sat there watching, feeling like an afterthought in my own home. They were so absorbed in each other that my presence seemed irrelevant. Vanessa had taken my place at the head of the table, my wife's heart, and in the very fabric of our lives, I was merely a spectator relegated to the background as they shared the kind of connection I had longed for, but never achieved. The dinner went on like this, each moment reinforcing the shift that had taken place. I was no longer the center of my wife's world, Vanessa was. Though it stung, the pain was dulled by resignation that had settled deep within me. This was my life now. A life of leftovers and sideline existence. I had made peace with it, or at least I had told myself I had. As the meal came to an end, they continued their conversation. I quietly cleared the table, collecting the empty plates and wine glasses as while they stayed wrapped up in each other. Not even noticing me in the background, the sounds of their laughter echoed behind me, a reminder of how far I had fallen, of how small my role had become. Man, this is like the craziest downfall. Like, that is insane. Alright, as the night wore on, I found myself fading further to the background, the weight of my irrelevance pressing down on me. Each time I glanced up, it seems like Vanessa and my wife had inched closer together, their connection deepened within every passing moment. The space between them grew smaller, while the distance between me and everything I had known once stretched wider. At one point, Vanessa sighed, a content sound that filled the room. It's been a long day on my feet. Vanessa's voice was smooth and relaxed, my wife ever eager to please her, responded immediately, her tone light and playful. Well, we can't have that, can we? Let me take care of you. Her words were innocent enough, but there was a spark in her eyes that I hadn't seen in a long time. An eagerness, a desire that had been missing for so long. She knelt down in front of Vanessa, gently taking one of her feet into her hands, as if she were handling something precious. As she slowly removed Vanessa's shoes, the room seemed to hold its breath. The sock came off next, peeled away with a care that was almost reverent. Sounds like some kind of a Cinderella kind of thing with the shoes off and everything. But let's see what happens next. As though my wife was unwrapping a special gift, I saw it then, the glistens in her eyes, a look of discovery of finding something that could finally fill the void that had grown between us. It was a look I had longed to see direct at me, but it never had been. I watched as she began to rub and massage Vanessa's feet. Like, bruh. Her fingers working with a practiced grace that I had known she possessed. Vanessa's feet were everything mine weren't. Long, elegant, perfectly sculptured, the skin smooth, complexion flawless, every toe in perfect proportion to the next. Vanessa's feet seemed to embody everything my wife found attractive, everything that I lacked. My own feet, short and stubby with crooked toes that I had always been self-conscious about, were a source of quiet shame. I knew my wife found them unattractive, but I had never imagined how much it mattered. Man, that just sucks. But anyways, until I saw the way she looked at Vanessa's feet, like she had found something truly beautiful. I tried to look away to pretend that it didn't bother me, but I couldn't. I was forced to watch as my wife lavished attention on Vanessa, her touch tender and filled with care that I had never experienced. It was a stark reminder of how far I had fallen, of how inadequate I was in her eyes. The room was filled with soft murmurs and the occasional sigh of content from Vanessa. While I sat in silence, feeling small with each passing second, my presence in the room was as insignificant as the sound of the clock ticking on the wall, a faint reminder of time passing by, a time that no longer belonged to me. I had become an observer in my own life, watching as my wife found what she had been searching for, not in me, but in Vanessa. And though it hurt, I knew this was my reality now. This is your life now. I had to accept it to find some way to make peace with it, even as I sat there, knowing that my place in her heart had been filled by someone else. My wife's face drew close to Vanessa's feet, her expression one of the most worshipful admiration. It was as if she was captivated, unable to resist the allure before her. Her breath, warm, heavy, with a mix of emotions I hadn't seen in so long, wafted across Vanessa's skin. Each exhale was a silent hymn, a song of reverence and arousal spoken in a language I couldn't understand. I watched rooted to my seat as she inched closer to her lips, parting ever so slightly. As if the very air around Vanessa's feet was something sacred. The look in her eyes was one of the pure desire or raw hunger that I had never been able to inspire. It was a look that cut deep into me, feeling hollow and empty. Like everything that had once connected us being transferred to Vanessa with each breath my wife took. She moved with deliberate slowness, her gaze never leaving Vanessa's feet. Her hands still gently massaged them, as if she couldn't bear to break connection even for a moment. The room seemed to shrink around them, their shared intimacy forming an invisible barrier that I could never breach. I was an outsider, a mere spectator to a moment that was never meant for me. The air was thick with tension, a charged silence that was only broken by the soft sound of my wife's breathing. The growing more rapid and shallow as she drew closer. I could see the flush spread across her cheeks, the way her eyes shone with something that bordered on devotion. And then in one fluid motion her lips brushed against Vanessa's toes, a kiss so slight, so reverent, that it felt like culmination of everything she had been yearning for. It was as if she had finally found what she had been searching for, something that had been missing from her life. Wait, why does it feel like I've already said that? It's like deja vu. Like, bro, I feel like I already said this, bro. Something that I could never provide. In that moment, I knew I was no longer what she needed or wanted. Vanessa had taken my place, not just at the table, but in my wife's heart, in the very fabric of our relationship. I had become an afterthought, a shadow of what I once was. And all I could do was watch as my wife continued to worship Vanessa. Her breathly hymns filled the space between them, leaving me too silent to reckon with the realization that I had lost her, perhaps for good. Sheesh. My wife's restraint finally shattered, and with a sudden unrestrained fervor. Man, after that long session with the toes and stuff, that's just crazy. Sheesh. Alright. I sat frozen watching as they disappeared from the room. Vanessa leading my wife towards the bedroom that we had once shared. The sight of them walking away hand in hand heading to the place that had once been our sanctuary felt like the final blow. It was as if Vanessa was not just leading her away, but leading her away from me, from everything we had built together. The door to the bedroom creaked open and I heard a soft murmur, followed by the click of the door closing behind them. The house fell to heavy silence broken by the distant sound of their voices, muffled and indistinct, yet filled with an unmistakable intimacy. I was left alone sitting at the table where just moments ago we had all been together, now feeling more isolated than ever. The room once filled with laughter and warmth now seemed cold and empty, a stark contrast to the sound that had just faded away. As I stared at the closed door, I felt like the weight of what had just happened sank in. Vanessa had taken my wife into our bedroom, our space, and I knew that whatever was happening on the other side of that door was something that would never, forever change our relationship. I had been left behind, cast aside as Vanessa became the center of my wife's world. The one who now held her heart and attention. I didn't move, I couldn't. The reality of it all was too much to bear, and all I could do was sit there alone in silence, trying to make sense of how everything had gone so wrong. The tension had been building inside me, a mix of anger, frustration, and desperation. I couldn't sit there any longer stewing my thoughts, while the reality of what was happening on the other side of that door gnawed me. Eventually I sprang to my feet, driven by a surge of determination that felt foreign and fleeting. I had to do something, anything, But as I approached the bedroom door, that convict building began to fade, replaced by a familiar feeling of hesitation. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat a reminder of the uncertainty that gripped me. When I finally reached the door, all I could manage was with two soft knocks, the sound barely audible, a far cry from the bold confrontation I had imagined. I was careful not to convey any frustration, any challenge. Even now in this moment, I was afraid to provoke Vanessa of making things worse. There was a brief silence from within, a stillness that made my heart race even faster. Then I heard voices, a discussion, low intent. I couldn't make out the exact words, but it sounded like my wife was objecting to something. My voice was unsure, wavering, while Vanessa's tone was firm and insistent. Whatever was happening, it was clear that Vanessa was in control. Her words carried a weight that my wife couldn't counsel. Before I could process what was being said, the door suddenly swung open with a force that made me flinch. The end. Alright, that's the end of this nonsense. Yo, I'm done with this base game. What the heck? But anyways, yeah, that's what happened. But anyways, that's the end of today's video, guys. You probably might see what, happened. Just use your imagination or whatever. But anyways, that is the end of today's video, everyone. Give this video a thumbs up if you like it, dislike if you dislike it. Check out my Discord server down below in the description. Check out my social media as well. And I'll see you guys in the next one.